Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
July 12, 1996, Spokane, Washington. July 27, 1996, Atlanta, Georgia. Two vicious attacks separated by 15 days and 3,000 miles. Is there a connection? In a special report, we'll examine compelling evidence that may help solve the infamous Olympic Park bombing. According to his ex-wife, Salvatore Spinnato had everything you'd expect a con artist to have. Charm, a glib tongue, and a secret past. According to the police, Spinnato has something extra, a nasty temper and a taste for violence. Christina Umowski was still a toddler when doctors told her parents she would likely die before the age of 10. Today, Christina is a happy, healthy 12-year-old. Did the sublime faith of Father Ralph Diorio bring about her miraculous recovery? Join me for these intriguing cases. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery. The con artists we have profiled seem to share similar characteristics. They are seductively charming, totally convincing, utterly without conscience, but rarely violent. Some who know the debonair hustler you're about to meet say he also fits the type. That is, unless you cross him.
Hello?
Tony, the usual table, please.
Well, this looks very nice.
When Beth Smith met Sal Oliverio, she had one vulnerability. Oliverio found it and latched on.
Ah.
Thank you.
Tony, your best champagne.
I was a single mother of 2 children. Financially, I was very stable. Career-wise, I was very stable. And I guess the only thing that was really missing in that equation was a husband and a father for my children.
You're gorgeous.
At the time, Beth was a computer consultant. Oliverio ran a physical therapy business.
Dress is lovely.
Beth says he recounted in detail his distinguished Navy career, including 2 years as a POW in Vietnam.
You can't understand unless you were over there.
He told me stories about how he was captured in Vietnam, how he was a prisoner of war.
How long were you a prisoner?
About 2 years.
He told these war stories to me. He told them to my children. You know, my children thought of him as a war hero.
The only thing I knew is I was not going to die there.
When he would tell these stories, he would cry. He would literally cry. He would be very believable, very believable.
Beth fell in love with the man Sal Oliverio pretended to be, war hero turned entrepreneur. They were married in October of 1988. Beth quit her own job to run Oliverio's company. She says that before long, his charming facade had started to flake away.
The bottom line numbers always showed him in the red, and it was just, you know, amazing. I didn't understand how he thought he was going to pay these bills that he had coming in.
Sal, could you come in here for a minute?
Yes, dear.
You know, I have been over and over these numbers, and I just don't understand what's going on.
Don't worry about it.
What do you mean, don't worry about it? Where's the money gonna come from?
Don't worry about it. I've got some checks coming in.
Sal, what about the quarterly taxes?
You don't understand this business. I'll take care of it. It's not your problem.
It just started becoming obvious that things were not as they appeared to be before we were married at all. In his personality, in his background, it changed. He changed. The true him came out.
The true him was stuffed in a box hidden in the basement. Beth found it shortly before her 3rd wedding anniversary.
It had written on it, Lexington Correctional Institution. And I'd never seen that before, and I'd never heard that name before.
Oliverio's untidy past was spelled out in 20-point bold type. So was his real name, Salvatore Spinnato. He had done time in Kentucky for bank fraud. The article said he had run business scams for years, allegedly duping one investor of more than $250,000. When it suited him, Spinnato had worked undercover for the FBI, posing as a corrupt contractor in a widely publicized sting operation.
The people who had taken him into their confidence and had paid him bribes felt double-crossed when they found out he was working for the FBI. And I think the FBI wasn't too sure at the end whether Sal was leaking information to the other side for whatever reason. Nobody trusted him at the end of that investigation.
It told me that I was married to someone that was very deceptive, very manipulative, and someone I didn't know at all. And everything that he told me about what he wanted and who he was a lie.
Beth moved out a few days later. She filed for a marriage annulment based on Spinato's fraudulent identity. Eventually, they settled on a divorce.
We still maintained a relationship at that point because he still owed me a significant amount of money, and he was making payments on that. Not consistently and not by court order at all. Just occasionally he would call and say, I have some extra money, and give me a few $100s towards what he owed me.
Oh, Sal, hi. Thanks for calling back.
In June of 1996, Beth was preparing to leave town for 10 days. Her boyfriend, Greg, had his own plans to be away for part of that time. Beth asked Spinnato to help keep an eye on her 17-year-old son.
Sal, I got a favor to ask.
Sal and my son had a good relationship when we were married and before we were married. They got along well together. I knew he was dating several other women, so I assumed there was no other, meaning that he could take from this at all. And he said that was fine, that was fine. He would do that. He would look in on my son.
A couple days after Beth left the country, I got a call out of the blue from Sal. He identified himself as Sal Oliverio, and he called me and said that he needed to talk to me right away, that he was very concerned about her son, that he was involved with some drugs.
Yeah, it's drugs. The kid's gonna get in trouble. She's out of the country. I don't know what to do.
Greg says that on July 3rd, he met with Spinnato at a local convenience store.
He's gonna get in trouble.
Well, did you get
I had no reason to doubt him. He seemed genuine in what he was saying. He was very concerned about his welfare, his health and well-being. It was his, his stepson. He said, there's a house that I just bought around the corner that I'm in the process of remodeling. Would I mind just following him there? And he'd give me some more information, and there was some information that had to do with me. So I agreed.
It's a great neighborhood. I got the house for a wonderful price. And
The drug story was a ruse. According to Greg, Spinato's real motive soon became painfully clear.
I thought this would be a little more private. Let me show you what I found.
The club had an electric shock to it. It was a taser weapon. I knew that I was in a real bad situation. I mean, nobody saw me go in. Nobody knew where I was. I knew I was history.
We're gonna kill you. You ain't walking out of here. You ain't never seen your kids again.
What's going on? I thought this was about the kid.
You idiot, ain't about him. It's about my wife. She's still my wife. Capiche?
I realized that this had nothing to do with her son. The whole purpose in Sal's mind was for me to stop seeing his ex-wife.
I've got a decision to make. I've got to decide if I want this guy to blow you away or not. Look at him. Look at him.
So I looked up at him and I recognized him. This is a guy who had been in my house.
How old did you say the roof was?
A few weeks earlier, Greg had listed his home for sale. He says the man represented himself as a prospective buyer, but it now seemed he had been a spy for Sal Spinnato.
Agent's number, and we'll be in touch.
Sure thing.
Thanks.
He mentioned his name, but I didn't remember it, So as he pulled away, I wrote down his license plate number. I don't know what possessed me to even think of doing that, but thank God that I did.
Okay, Sal. I'll do whatever you want.
I was willing to do anything, say anything, to get out of that house. The whole conversation shifted. You know, he had decided that he was going to let me live, that he wasn't going to kill me, but that I better come up with a real good story about how to break it off with his wife.
We're gonna go for a little ride. We gotta come up with a plan.
Greg had another plan. He went straight to the police. They identified Paul Homer Schaefer, Spinato's alleged accomplice, from the license number Greg had jotted down earlier. Schaefer is currently in jail, awaiting trial on charges of kidnapping and assault. Salvatore Spinnato was arrested, booked, then released on bail. He did not show for a scheduled court date in January, and his whereabouts are currently unknown.
I think he's a very desperate man. I think he's gone over the edge of what he's done in the past with this latest incident. I think he's a very dangerous person. And if he would do this, what else would he do?
Now he's moved into the realm of manipulating people by using violence. There's no reason to conclude that he won't do it again in the future. Especially if he sees from some point of view he's got nothing to lose. And he's got to know, he's been around the system long enough to know that we're looking for him. We want him.
Next, they said she'd never live long enough to jump rope, but that was before Christina Umowski's remarkable encounter with a faith-healing priest named Ralph DiOrio. The journey from sickness to health is often a mysterious passage, at times inexplicable even to doctors themselves. Perhaps most baffling of all are the dramatic recoveries attributed to divine healing. Tonight we visit the world of Father Ralph DiOrio, a Catholic priest who's been credited with thousands of miraculous healings.
Heal me, Jesus.
At Father DiOrio's prayer meetings, worshipers topple to the floor left and right. It is not uncommon to see dozens of people sprawled around the room. Some call it the slaying of the Spirit, a total surrender of individual will to the power of God.
You might be getting the gift of tears. That's a gift, too.
Father DiOrio ministers to ills of the body as well as those of the soul, though he is quick to point out that any miracle cures are not his work, but God's.
It appears that God has chosen me openly, clearly, publicly, and all he needed from me was, okay, Lord, I'm willing to be your instrument of speech, of thought, of touch. And so I become the visible presence of God. But God is the divine healer.
Steve, good Steve. Christina was born with neurofibromatosis.
Stan Umowski and his family are among those who speak from experience when they testified of the extraordinary power of DiOrio's prayers.
It's a degenerative genetic disorder.
The Umowski's ordeal began a few weeks before Christmas in 1988. It was a proverbial ordinary day. Mary Umowski was immersed in housework. 3-year-old Christina was napping on the living room floor.
You sleepyhead, did you have a good nap? Christina?
I walked over to her, and her eyes were kind of staring up at the ceiling, and she didn't respond to me.
Sweetie, can you hear me?
Her eyes were open, but she wasn't acknowledging me. She wasn't saying anything, and she was just making this little gurgling sound in her throat.
Christina? Sweetie, come on, baby. Come on. Honey?
As I dialed the doctor, that's when she started convulsing. Not a wild convulsion, it was basically a tremor on one side of her body.
Sweetie, Christina? Okay, it's all right, it's okay.
I don't know what told me to start timing it. I remember it started at 1 o'clock that day, December 1st, and the seizure lasted for 20 minutes.
I'm sorry, but the news is not good. Christina is suffering with neurofibromatosis. NF causes tumors to grow on the nerve endings, And in Christina's case, she's developed an optic glioma.
The specialists all agreed. The neurofibromatosis was unstoppable. It would compromise Christina's vision, disrupt her physical coordination, and ultimately take her life. It was almost a certainty.
Is she going to die?
I'm afraid that's a possibility you're going to have to face.
We sat down and we cried for weeks on end. Tears would just come to our eyes at any time during the day or night. We couldn't sleep. We were devastated by it.
We were going every 6 months for a follow-up MRI and hearing the worst news each time that the tumor was growing.
The disease took its toll. As expected, Christina fell far behind her classmates in physical ability.
There's certain things she would not be able to do at all. Skipping, forget about it. Running, I mean, the coordination wasn't there to do any of these things. Jumping, she couldn't get her feet off the ground.
Of course, the first question you ask is why? Why? Why God? Why my daughter? What did she ever do to hurt you? You know, that type of thing. Anger set in for a while.
At the urging of a friend, the Umowskis attended one of Father Diorio's prayer meetings in February of 1992. Stan was deeply skeptical. His doubts, however, were outweighed by his desperation.
I still had some anger in me. Even though I agreed to go, I carried a tape recorder in my pocket and I taped the entire service, thinking that if this man is a fraud, I'll expose him.
The true healing.
Dozens had come to be healed, each hoping for a personal blessing. Despite his skepticism, Stan was determined that Christina would be chosen.
Are there any children out there who are suffering? Please raise your hand.
Father! Right here, Father!
Yes. Do you have a sick child?
Yes, Father, my daughter.
Would you please bring her here to me?
I was so excited and thrilled just for the fact that they got called forward. You know, after seeing a number of people there, I thought our chances of even being called or having Christina blessed were almost nil.
Sweetheart, what is your name?
Christina.
Christina. Now, Christina, do you believe in Jesus?
Yes.
Do you love Jesus?
Yes, I love Jesus.
Good. I'm going to say a prayer for you right now. There are 3 types of healing. There's the physical healing, the spiritual healing, and the psychological healing. So God is aiming for all 3 of these healings to give this person a new chance, a new chapter in the autobiography of that person's life, you see.
Though Stan and Mary had come in search of a miracle, they had no idea what one might look like.
Mommy?
What is it, sweetie?
Mommy, how did that man do that?
Do what, Christina?
How did he make it so hot?
What are you talking about?
Mommy, when that man touched me on my head, he made me feel hot.
And then I remembered what Father Diorio had said during the service about people feeling a warmth in their body. And then, only then, me, who was all bundled up, I was so cold. I looked at her, her hood was down, no gloves on, her coat was hanging open.
Do you remember when Father Diorio said that when the Holy Spirit enters your body, you might feel warm?
Was it a miracle in the making? Within 2 days, the answer became clear to Stan and Mary.
Right on the front stoop of this school, she starts jumping rope. And her feet are not just an inch off the ground. She's literally jumping a half a foot off the ground. And not just a couple of jumps. She's jumping and she's jumping. And I'm looking at her in, like, disbelief. And she calls out to me, "Mommy, how can I do this all of a sudden?" Her words, all of a sudden.
Hello, doctor. Thanks for calling. Listen, I was wondering if you had a chance to view the MRIs.
Any lingering doubts dissolved 2 weeks later when Christina's doctor called with the results from the latest MRI.
Well, how much is it going down? Okay. All right, we'll see you at the meeting.
We went to see the doctor in person, and I said, well, doctor, show me where the tumor is. You said it was greatly reduced. Please show me where the tumor is. And he put his finger on this one. He said, well, this is where it was.
We asked a physician unconnected with this case to review 2 of Christina's MRIs. One was made in 1991, almost a year before Christina's visit to Father Diorio. Christina's tumor showed up as thickening on a part of the brain known as the optic chiasm. The other MRI was made in 1992, shortly after Father Diorio's blessing.
Christina's MRI scan in 1992 in the region of the optic chiasm appears to be normal. It appears that in 1992, the thickening of the optic chiasm has disappeared when compared with the previous exam of 1991. In neurofibromatosis, there have been rare instances of regression of optic nerve gliomas, but this is a rare event.
Just washing all the dishes and the sink.
It would appear that Christina is among those rare few. Recent MRIs confirm that in the 5 years since Father Diorio blessed Christina, the life-threatening tumor has not returned.
I couldn't jump rope, and now I could do it very well. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't jump or run or anything. I'm glad that I can do things now, and I can keep up with the other kids.
There are many healings where both medicine and prayer are constantly working. God works through all his creation, and one of God's primary materialistic, naturalistic, scientific ways of healing is through the medical profession.
I thank God every day for what he's done for us. I thank Father Diorio for being the catalyst in that healing. It absolutely, positively was a miracle, and I could never thank him enough for that.
In this age of cold facts and hard science, is there room for something as unexplainable as an honest-to-God miracle? For the Umowskis and literally thousands of others who believe Father Diorio's intervention saved them from sickness or death, the answer is a heartfelt yes. Next, a door-to-door saleswoman has a startling face-to-face encounter with a murder suspect. July 31st, 1995, Roebuck, South Carolina. The end of a hot summer day became a prelude to mystery for a door-to-door saleswoman we will call Shirley.
It was nice meeting you.
It's nice doing business with you.
Okay, I better get back to my customer.
At around 6:30 p.m., Shirley sold a bottle of cleaning fluid to a new customer, 27-year-old Dana Satterfield. The mother of 2 children, Dana had recently separated from her husband. She owned and operated her own beauty salon just off State Highway 221.
She was real nice. And, you know, she told me to wait because she wanted to see my product. She was real friendly. She was outspoken, real friendly lady.
After the sale, Shirley headed down the road to look for other customers. An hour later, she would pass back by the salon and emerge as the key witness in a murder case. On her return trip, Shirley looked in the window and saw that it was 8:11 p.m.
Dana was cleaning up, getting everything, I guess, to close up the shop for the night. She was like wiping out the sink. She was standing right between where I left my product at. And I waved at her, and I kept going.
At around 8:30, after she made 2 more calls, Shirley returned to the salon one final time to wait for her ride home.
I noticed the lights was on, and I was gonna go into the shop, the beauty shop, but I just stopped. And I said, no, I better not go in, I might get in trouble. So I went and stood at the street, at the edge of the pavement. Then I noticed, I heard a noise, a loud thump noise. I kept hearing about 2 or 3 thump noises. I kept looking back.
The next time Shirley turned around, someone had turned the lights out.
And I said, wow, she getting ready to come out. Then I was happy because, you know, I wanted to talk to her. By that time, I heard a big crash sound. When I looked to my left, I noticed a man getting off the ground, off his knees. And I just grabbed my bag, and I started running.
Shirley thought she had crossed paths with a burglar. She ran to the liquor store, 50 feet away, to call the police.
And we met and we looked at each other. You know how a crazy person look when they crazy? That's how he looked, like he was real crazy. And he scared me, so that's why I had to run again to get away from it.
Shirley tried to flag down a motorist. When that failed, she ran to the nearest house and phoned 911. A deputy sheriff arrived, assuming that the beauty salon had been robbed. He had no idea if Dana Satterfield was still inside.
Dana Satterfield had been beaten severely. She had been raped. She had been strangled. And there was no indication that robbery was a motive, and there was no evidence of any other disturbance in any other part of the salon.
I just couldn't believe that anybody would want to hurt her, because she never hurt no one. She tried to help a lot of people, and she did help a lot of people.
Initially, suspicion focused on Dana's husband, Mike. However, Mike says their breakup was amicable. In addition, Mike in no way fit the description of the man seen fleeing from the trailer.
All friends and family and people that knew us know, you know, that I didn't have anything to do with Dana's murder, because I wouldn't put someone through that or put my children through that, or I couldn't do something like that.
We've not ruled anyone out in terms of saying that one person or another has absolutely no connection with this case. But at this point in time, we're not actively pursuing Mike Satterfield as a suspect.
The police did look into the possibility that Mike had hired someone to kill his wife. But the brutal manner in which Dana had been raped and strangled was inconsistent with a professional hit.
We believe this is a predator, a serial killer, a person who would have stalked Miss Satterfield and waited for an opportunity to kill her in the manner that they did. I'm sure he didn't anticipate a sales lady, and certainly not a sales lady who would make a sale earlier in the evening and then come back by and be standing in front of the trailer, maybe even while this murder was taking place.
I didn't know what had happened, but I knew somebody needed help. And I just wanted somebody to get somebody there to see what was going on.
It was pure luck that Shirley had come face to face with the alleged killer. 2 weeks later, another bit of luck. A second eyewitness came forward. Ken Smith was one of Dana Satterfield's customers. At around 8:40 on the night of the murder, he was driving past the salon.
As I come up 221, I looked over at Dana's, and I seen her lights off. I seen her car sitting there, and I thought that was odd that her car was there without her lights on. So as soon as I turned back around and looked at the road, that's where I seen this guy run out of the road to the shoulder. He turned around and looked at me while he was standing at his Bronco. He had his hand like in his shirt. As I come by, he sort of just turned around and gave me a, go to hell look. Like, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at me?
Based upon the descriptions of both eyewitnesses, police have come up with this composite. The suspect is 18 to 25 years old. He is 5'6" to 5'9" tall and weighs between 145 and 170 pounds. He has blonde or light brown hair.
He's got to be stopped, and he's got to pay for what he did to my child. And if he's done this to somebody else, we need to stop him now.
Sometimes I wake up at night and sit straight up in bed, and I see somebody strangling her, and I can't get to her. It's hurt us all.
Coming up, a possible break in the Olympic Park bombing. Was that attack connected to similar bombings which occurred weeks earlier on the other side of the country? But first, some 20 years ago, a simple act of kindness launched the career of renowned chef Moses Trevis. Now he wants to find the woman who inspired him to pursue his dream. At one time or another, we've all done something nice for someone else without expecting anything in return. Whether we realize it or not, such acts can occasionally have a profound effect. Every so often, a small kindness can completely change a person's life. Moses Trevis is one of the country's most critically acclaimed chefs. He owns 2 award-winning Mexican restaurants in Arizona, both curiously named Such Is Life. How Moses acquired that name is at the center of his own personal, unsolved mystery. In the mid-1970s, Moses was a day cook at a small taco stand on the island of Cozumel in Mexico. He had a reputation for making the best tacos in town. One of Moses' favorite customers was an American tourist named Judy Anderson.
Oh, hi, Judy. You unusual?
Yes, por favor.
Judy was a school teacher who visited the island 7 times over a 3-year period. Moses vividly remembers Judy and her last visit in 1977.
Getting me the hotel. It's much better.
She was a very nice lady, quiet lady with a book all the time. And she asked me if I can, if I have time to, because she wants to go to the mainland, which is across the island, which is, you know, 15 miles, 17 miles across the island. And the mainland is where all the ruins are.
You know Chichen Itza?
Oh, that's the big one.
Oh, yeah.
The next day, Moses closed up shop and set off with Judy on a day-long excursion. Their destination, the Mayan pyramids along the Yucatan Peninsula. Around noon, they stopped for lunch and communicated as best they could in broken English.
Moses, wouldn't you like to own a restaurant like this someday with tables and chairs?
Oh, yeah. You know, I dream to open a restaurant, but, you know, no money.
Such is life.
Excuse me?
Such is life. It means that's the way life is, you know.
Such is life. I like that. Yeah. You know what, Judy? When I open my restaurant, I want to call Such is Life and put it on the menus and...
That's a great idea.
Nothing more was said, but deep inside Moses, an idea had taken root. It would begin to blossom later that afternoon.
You know, anytime you come.
As the day came to a close, it was time to say goodbye. Moses would take a ferry back to the island. Judy would stay on the mainland to catch a flight back to the United States.
Oh, no tip.
No. It's not a tip. No.
Before parting, Judy had an unexpected gift for Moses.
Don't open.
Okay.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye, Judy.
When Moses opened the envelope, he was stunned to find 5 $100 bills and a hastily written note. Dear Moses, go make Such is Life happen. Love, Judy. Moses did just that. Within a month, he had opened his own tiny restaurant on Cozumel. Naturally, he named it Such is Life. Moses eagerly awaited Judy's next trip to the island, but he never saw her again. Now, some 20 years later, Moses Trevis is a United States citizen. His restaurants have been lauded by both local newspapers and the national press. He and his family live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and believe they owe much of their good fortune to the unselfish kindness of Judy Anderson.
The story helps to understand that it came out of nothing. I mean, it came out of an act of love. It's not an act of money or power, or it's just an act of love. Moses needed just a little push to become a wonderful butterfly. She understood what Moses had inside.
Such is life.
She was very wise to let him know that he was good enough to become what he is now.
It will be a very nice surprise for somebody, you know, like her, who after 20 years, somebody say, they looking for you because you are the one that says such a slam. That will be nice, no? I think that will be more than thank you.
Next, 2 bombings and 2 bank robberies in Spokane, Washington. The terrifying explosion during Atlanta's Olympic Games. Our special report examines possible links that may be much more than coincidence. July 27, 1996, Atlanta's Centennial Park. Thousands had gathered to share in the excitement of the Olympic Games. What no one realized is that a 911 operator had just received this shocking phone call.
There is a bomb in Centennial Park. You have 30 minutes.
At 1:25 a.m., the park became like a war zone. 2 people died. 111 were injured. A pipe bomb, hidden in a military backpack, had exploded next to the AT&T Pavilion. The initial suspect was a security guard named Richard Jewell, but after months of investigation, he was officially cleared.
I am not the Olympic Park bomber.
With a simple statement, the investigation threatened to grind to a halt. Then a West Coast newspaper published startling new information that some believe could lead to an arrest in the Olympic bombing. The evidence is purely circumstantial, but it seems much more than coincidence. In the newspaper's scenario, Atlanta was the last in a series of attacks that began 3 months earlier and 3,000 miles away. April Fool's Day, 1996, 2:36 p.m. A customized van pulled up to the rear of the Spokesman Review, Spokane, Washington's leading newspaper.
Pipe bomb! Get out! Get out! Call 911!
Just then, the newspaper's operations manager arrived. Fortunately, no one was injured in the blast, but the bombers did leave a calling card, a rambling, incoherent diatribe that quoted liberally from the Bible and appeared to be an extreme right-wing manifesto.
It's a robbery! You want me to say nobody gets hurt?
At that very moment, 2 armed men operating with military-like precision entered the U.S. Bank 20 blocks away. The robbers made off with some $70,000 in cash. They, too, left a calling card, copies of the same rambling diatribe found at the newspaper. Three months later, another pipe bomb at a Planned Parenthood office and another robbery at the same U.S. bank. These surveillance photos would provide the major break in the case when a military surplus dealer in Idaho recognized a parka worn by one of the gunmen. He told authorities he had sold similar parkas to 3 men, Robert Berry, Vern Merrill, and Charles Barbie. In October of 1996, all 3 were arrested in Portland, Oregon. They were allegedly members of an obscure right-wing religious sect. A year earlier, Charles Barbie himself had been interviewed by the Spokesman Review for a series on the anti-government movement.
Barbie said that there may be a time when he and people like him would have to resort to warfare, and that there would have to blood would have to be shed because the government was so evil.
On the day of the arrest, no one imagined that there might be a possible connection between these 3 men and the bombing at the Olympics. Then in December, the FBI released photographs of the type of backpack reportedly used to conceal the bomb in Atlanta. Once again, the military surplus dealer in Idaho came forward with a shocking disclosure.
He proceeded to tell me that he believed he'd sold a backpack to these men that was similar to the military-style backpack, the Alice pack, used in the Atlanta bombing. He said that the men had asked how to get fingerprints off such a backpack, and he'd told them just to throw it in the washing machine. And he said they'd asked about a detonator, about how to create a time-delayed detonator, much like the one used in the Atlanta bombing, and that he had given them advice on that.
The Spokesman Review immediately launched its own investigation. More possible links between the Spokane and Atlanta bombings now came to light.
What we found was that one of the men, Charles Barbie, had worked for AT&T and left the company in disgust because of their support of affirmative action and some other programs. And if you will recall, the bomb was detonated not far from the AT&T pavilion within Centennial Park, suggesting that there might have been a motive. In addition to that, the FBI had obtained phone records that showed that there had been telephone calls made from the Atlanta area to Barbie's North Idaho home immediately after the bombing in Atlanta.
A backpack, an alleged grudge against AT&T, several suspicious phone calls. The evidence was hardly conclusive, but it was enough for the Spokesman Review. The paper went public with its findings on Super Bowl Sunday, 1997. Within hours, another stunning link between the bombings was revealed.
An architect in Atlanta was watching the Super Bowl. He saw during the halftime pictures of the three men who were charged with the bombings up here and might have been linked to the bombings in Atlanta. When he saw the picture of Robert Barry, he said to himself and later to others, "That looks like the man I saw carrying a backpack into Centennial Park the night of the Olympic bombing."
The architect had twice faxed this sketch of the man with a backpack to the FBI. Both times there was no response. In January, he faxed it to the Spokesman Review. For many people, the resemblance between the sketch and Robert Barry is striking. Was Robert Barry among the celebrants in Centennial Park on the night of the bombing? If so, was he responsible for the tragedy? The FBI has interviewed the architect and investigated the claims of the Spokesman Review. They maintain that any connection between the Spokane and Olympic bombings is, quote, a creation of the Spokesman Review. The newspaper stands by its story. Join me next time for another edition of Unsolved Mysteries.